Today's topic is really simple, and yet we spend a tremendous amount of time as project managers following up with people to do what they said they were going to do. Projects are all about commitments, commitments of schedule, commitments of scope, commitments of budgets, and teams run on predictability and follow through. There's so many things that we do on our projects, and it's the people that do the work. So when people do what they say they're going to do, the work flows. But unfortunately, we spend a tremendous amount of time chasing people to do what they said they were going to do. Instead of leading, instead of knocking down risks and issues, we're chasing people to do their activities. And the key to this is really focusing on expectations, accountability, and communication. So the goal in your project is you want to build a culture where people mean what they say and they do what they say, and where we don't have to be babysitters or professional chasers. Much, much harder to do than said. But why does this matter? As I mentioned, project plans are all about commitments of schedule and deliverables and timelines. And that's what we use to plan and sequence the work. So when dependencies break, then momentum slows and we have a much harder time delivering on the things that we said we're going to do. And you could see here, the metaphor of the dominoes, as well as it just drains the time of the PMs if we're chasing down people instead of doing what we need to work on. Missed commitments create all sorts of unnecessary fire drills, and we'll talk about what that looks like on the next slide. And our performance is based on reliability. And so a predictable team is really a high performing team. And so what happens when commitments are missed? There's a few things, right? First, works just flat out stalls. Then you've got scrambling to replan because now everything is interdependent on each self, right? So especially if it's a critical path activity, trust erodes because people aren't doing what they say they're going to do. So how can you trust them in the future? Now we're being reactive to things instead of proactive and focusing on looking forward and planning. Quality suffers because we're rushing to get things done. Credibility of the whole team goes down because if I'm a leader, and why would I believe anything you say because you're not meeting your commitments? Then there's ultimately escalations. And finally, and most importantly, is the reduced chance of success, right? Projects are based on delivery of work. And when we don't deliver that work, we have a much harder time meeting success. So let's understand, why do people miss commitments? And I think there's a few reasons. First, people maybe say yes too quickly. They're too overconfident in their ability to get things done. Maybe they underestimate the amount of effort or complexity to do something. A lot of people are just really bad at managing their own time or competing priorities, and that's very common on projects now, as many people are working on multiple projects plus a day job plus other commitments, and they just can't balance them well. Maybe they don't want to push back. Maybe they don't understand what done looks like and what they actually signed up for. Maybe they're just avoiding a difficult conversation. They're probably bad at tracking their own commitments. This is very true, right? A lot of times people just assume that someone else will remind them, especially if you do continue to remind people and follow up with people. It creates this cycle of dependence where people don't take accountability for themselves and just assume that you're going to tell them when something's due. And lastly, I find this on projects a lot. Some team members don't feel like they own the work. They feel like, well, it's somebody else's work, it's somebody else's assignment, somebody else agreed to this. And when they don't feel ownership for the work, then they don't feel the need to deliver it on time. But in any case, regardless of what the reasons are, we have to spend the right amount of time upfront managing expectations, getting commitments from team members, actual commitments. You're going to do this by this date, and here's what done looks like. You think about what could get in the way before locking in a date. What are some risks? Hey, are you working on other projects? Are there any interdependencies? Do you have upcoming time off? Encourage them to come up with realistic estimates of timeline. You're going to want to document those commitments and in a place that reminds people of that. Repeat back to them what they said by confirming understanding. And not this is not always possible with projects, but my favorite project management technique is schedule contingency. Build some buffer into the plan. So if they say it's going to take 2 weeks, put 3 weeks on the plan just in case, assuming it's possible. And I know a lot of times we're given dates and that's not possible. And then reinforce that these are agreements and not just suggestions. And you want to hold people accountable. So once you've managed expectations, you want to follow up. Are you still on track to do this? You committed to this date. And again, it's not emotional, it's facts. You committed to this date. You told me you were going to do this. Are we on track to do that? And if it looks like it's going to slip, escalate early And then you want to reward people for actually doing what they say they're going to do and coach those who are struggling with that. I think having commitments visible is really important. So on status reports or updates or things like that, put the dates in there so that people are reminded of it. You want to encourage people that you don't want surprises. So if this gets to managing expectations too, if something's not going to get made, don't tell me the day before or the day it's due. Let's discuss it earlier and see what we can agree upon if there's any changes. And then we as PMs have to model it as well. I'm a firm believer that when I say I'm going to do something, I do it 100% of the time. Or I tell people why I can't and I manage expectations early. So, look, commitments are the backbone of predictable delivery. It's the only way we're going to be successful. And missed commitments just, they waste time, they waste energy, they waste trust, they send us running in circles to chase people around. And the only way you resolve that is by having clear expectations and holding people accountable to the things that they said that they were going to do. PM shouldn't have to chase, but we do. And it's the reality of working with people and working with people who have other activities, other priorities. And it's a very simple task, right? Just do what you say. It has massive impact, and yet it's so difficult. So, with that in mind, let me know what other techniques you might use for this. And thanks for watching today.